What's up? I'm Lily Revenge Crown, brings you the stories that keep you hooked. If that sounds good, smash subscribe and let's go.
I was 18 years old the first time my father told me I wasn't smart enough. It was April 2013. The thick envelope from Johns Hopkins had arrived that morning. Early decision acceptance to their pre-med program with a full academic scholarship. For years, everything paid. Room, board, tuition. A golden ticket most students would kill for. I'd been checking the mail every day for 3 weeks. When I saw the Hopkins logo, my hands shook so badly I could barely open it. I read the letter 5 times in our driveway, making sure it was real. Then I ran inside, breathless, ready to share the best news of my life. My father was in his study. Dr. Marcus Rivera, chief of surgery at Memorial Hospital, reviewing patient charts with the same methodical precision he brought to everything. I knocked on the doorframe. Dad. It came. Hopkins accepted me. Full scholarship. He looked up from his work. For a moment, just a brief flash, I saw something that might have been pride. Then it vanished, replaced by that expression I knew too well. The one that said he was about to explain reality to someone who didn't understand how the world worked. Catherine, sit down. I sat, still clutching the letter. Hopkins is a fine institution, he said carefully. But medical school isn't about getting accepted. It's about surviving. Thriving. Becoming the kind of doctor who saves lives instead of endangering them. I know, Dad. That's why I've been working so hard. You're not ready. He said it simply, like stating a medical fact. You lack the maturity, the discipline, the mental fortitude that medicine demands. You'd wash out in the first year and embarrass yourself. Embarrass this family. I felt something crack inside my chest. But they accepted me. They think I'm ready. Admissions committees make mistakes. They see test scores and transcripts, not character. He reached across his desk. Give me the letter. What? Why? Give it to me, Catherine. I handed it over, confused. He opened his desk drawer, pulled out a lighter, the silver one he used for his cigars, and held the flame to the corner of the acceptance letter. Dad, what are you? The paper caught. Orange flames consumed the Hopkins logo, my name, the scholarship offer. He held it until the fire nearly reached his fingers, then dropped it into his metal wastebasket where it curled into ash. You're not going to Hopkins, he said quietly. You'll attend state school. Live at home. Build some character. Maybe in a few years, if you prove yourself, we can revisit medical school. I sat frozen, watching smoke curl toward the ceiling. You'll thank me someday, he added, returning to his charts. I'm saving you from failure. That was 18 years ago. I never got another chance at Hopkins. Never proved myself enough in his eyes. Never heard him say he was wrong. Until last week, when everything changed. The Metropolitan Club's private dining room glittered with old money and older connections. My father had reserved it for a dinner party. 30 of his closest colleagues and wealthiest friends. Surgeons, hospital board members, pharmaceutical executives, the kind of people who summered in the Hamptons and wintered in Aspen. I'd been invited with the same casual dismissiveness my mother always used. Your father is hosting a dinner Thursday. You should attend. Business casual. Not we'd love to see you, or please join us. Just an instruction. I almost didn't go. I'd spent 18 years being paraded as the cautionary tale. The bright daughter who'd wasted her potential, who'd chosen mediocrity over excellence. But something made me RSVP yes. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the small bitter part of me that wanted to see if he'd changed. He hadn't. I arrived at 7 wearing my navy suit, the one I wore for legislative hearings and grant review panels. Professional but not elegant. Competent but not impressive. I slipped into an empty seat near the end of the table while my father worked the room. Dr. Marcus Rivera at 62 was still commanding. Silver hair perfectly styled, custom suit that cost more than my monthly rent, voice that filled spaces with easy authority. He moved between guests with practiced charm, telling stories about complicated surgeries and difficult patients. Dinner was served, filet mignon, roasted vegetables, wine that cost $200 per bottle. Conversation flowed around me. Hospital politics. Country club gossip. Complaints about government regulation and insurance companies. I ate quietly, responding when spoken to, otherwise invisible. Then came dessert. And my father stood to make a toast. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, he began, raising his wine glass. It's rare to gather so many brilliant minds in one room. As I look around this table, I see the people who make our medical community exceptional. Polite applause. Knowing smiles. Of course, not everyone achieves excellence. His eyes found me. My daughter Catherine is here tonight. Some of you may remember her from years ago. She was quite promising as a student. We had such hopes. My stomach tightened. Here it comes. Unfortunately, Catherine chose a different path. She works for the state now. Some kind of administrative position. Dead-end bureaucracy really. Nothing that requires the intelligence she once showed. He smiled sadly. I suppose we can't all live up to our potential. But we love her anyway. Sympathetic murmurs around the table. A few people glanced at me with pity. The brilliant daughter who'd become ordinary. What a shame. Dr. Richard Ashford, a cardiovascular surgeon, spoke up. What exactly do you do, Catherine? For the state. Everyone turned to look at me. Polite interest. Prepared to hear about filing systems or scheduling meetings or whatever boring government work occupied my days. I set down my fork carefully. Wiped my mouth with my napkin. Looked directly at my father. I'm Senior Program Officer for the State Health Fund, I said clearly. I manage grant compliance and oversight for medical research initiatives across 7 counties. A few people nodded vaguely. Government grants, how tedious. More specifically, I continued, I hold final signature authority on all foundation and institutional grants exceeding $5 million. My division controls approximately $800 million in annual state health funding. The room went quiet. Dr. Ashford's eyebrows rose. So when hospitals, research institutions, or medical foundations apply for state funding, those applications cross my desk. I review their financial records, verify their organizational integrity, ensure compliance with state and federal regulations. I took a sip of water. It's quite detailed work. Requires significant analytical ability. My father's smile had frozen on his face. In fact, Dad, I've been reviewing an application from your foundation. The Rivera Foundation for Diabetes Research. I tilted my head. You submitted a grant request 6 months ago. $8 million over 2 years to establish mobile health clinics in underserved communities. Really compelling proposal. His face went pale. I've been conducting due diligence. Standard procedure for any 8-figure grant. Financial audits, compliance reviews, verification of past program outcomes. I folded my hands on the table. I found some interesting things. Dr. Ashford leaned forward. Such as? Well, for example, the foundation reported raising $4.1 million in fiscal year 2023. Primarily from private donors who thought they were funding diabetes research and community health programs. My father stood abruptly. Catherine, this isn't the appropriate venue. You chose the venue, Dad. You made my career public when you called it dead-end bureaucracy. I pulled a folded document from my purse. Let me share what dead-end bureaucrats actually do. The table had gone silent. 30 pairs of eyes watching. March 2023. Your foundation issued a check for $150,000 to ComHealth Mobile Solutions for a mobile clinic vehicle. I contacted that vendor. No record of any transaction. I paused. But 2 days later you purchased a Porsche 911. Cash payment. $147,000. Someone gasped. My mother's face drained of color. June 2023. $200,000 for medical equipment. The vendor received $83,000. You withdrew the remaining $117,000 in cash. 3 separate transactions. This is absurd, my father sputtered. You're misunderstanding the accounting. August 2023. $85,000 for a medical conference in Geneva. The conference organizers have no record of your attendance. But your credit card statements show 5-star hotels in Tuscany during those exact dates. I unfolded the document fully. Shall I continue? The $320,000 salary for a community health coordinator who doesn't exist? The $2.3 million in equipment procurement through a Delaware LLC you own personally. Dr. Ashford's face had gone hard. Marcus, what is she talking about? Total embezzlement over 4 years. $4.1 million. I looked at my father. 80% of donated funds diverted to personal use. That's not a bookkeeping error, Dad. That's systematic criminal fraud. The room erupted. Questions shouted over each other. My father gripping the back of his chair. My mother standing, mouth open, speechless. Catherine, my father said desperately, you're taking things out of context. The foundation's finances are complex. I've been doing this job for 11 years. I know complex finances. This isn't complex. It's theft. I pulled out another document. Which is why I filed mandatory reports with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division 3 weeks ago. The shouting stopped. Dead silence. IRS Code 4941 addresses self-dealing by foundation directors. When a director uses charitable assets for personal benefit, the penalties are severe. I read from the document. First, complete repayment of all self-dealt amounts. Second, excise tax of 10%. If not corrected within the statutory period, that tax increases to 200%. I did the math for the room. $4.1 million in embezzlement. Initial tax penalty, $410,000. If uncorrected, which it will be since you can't repay what you've spent, the penalty becomes $8.2 million. My father sank into his chair. I also referred the case to the FBI's white-collar crime unit. Wire fraud charges. 14 counts based on the wire transfers I've documented. Each count carries up to 20 years federal prison. Dr. Patricia Morrison, a hospital board member, stood slowly. Marcus, I donated $200,000 last year specifically for diabetes research. Where did that money go? The research is ongoing, he said weakly. We're in the early stages. There is no research, I said. $0 distributed to any accredited institutions. 0 clinical trials. 0 publications. The mobile clinics don't exist. The community programs are fictional. It's all been going into offshore accounts and personal purchases for 18 years. 18 years. The same amount of time he'd been calling me a failure. Thomas Kellerman, a venture capitalist who'd donated heavily, stood up. I'm calling my lawyer. Marcus, you're going to hear from him tomorrow. 3 other people stood, leaving the table without a word. Catherine, please. My father's voice cracked. Think about your mother. Your brother. This will destroy the family. You destroyed this family. I stood gathering my things. You did it the day you burned my Hopkins letter because my success threatened your ego. You did it every time you paraded me as your failure to make yourself feel superior. You've been destroying us for 18 years. I just documented it. My mother rushed over. How can you be so cruel? So vindictive. Mom, did you know about the embezzlement? She hesitated. Just for a second. You knew, I said. You enjoyed the lifestyle. The jewelry. The trips. All bought with stolen charity money. We were going to pay it back. When? After you stole how much more? I shook my head. That's not restitution. That's just continuation. She slapped me. Sharp across the face. Half the table gasped. I touched my stinging cheek. That's assault. But I'm not pressing charges. Consider it a gift. It's more than you ever gave me. I walked toward the door. My father called after me. What do you want? Money. Is that what this is about? I turned back. I don't want anything from you. I'm doing my job. When a foundation applies for $8 million in state funding, I review their finances. What I found triggered mandatory reporting requirements. I don't have discretion. I have legal obligations. You could have come to me privately. I tried. 15 months ago. Anonymous tip to your board chairman about questionable expenses. I showed him the email chain on my phone. He forwarded it to you to investigate. It disappeared. Because Dr. Chin is your medical partner and co-investor in your shell companies. Dr. Chin, sitting 3 seats down, went white. That's conspiracy and racketeering, I continued. The FBI is very interested in that pattern. I opened the dining room door. In the hallway stood 3 people in dark suits. FBI credentials clearly visible. Dr. Rivera, the lead agent said, we need you to come with us for questioning. My father looked at me, betrayal and terror mixed on his face. You called them here? I didn't call anyone. They've been building this case for 3 weeks. I just filed the initial reports. I stepped aside to let them pass. You called this dinner party. You invited these witnesses. You chose to humiliate me one more time. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. They escorted him out. My mother followed, crying. The remaining guests sat in shocked silence. Dr. Ashford approached me. Catherine, I had no idea about any of this. Most people didn't. That's how this works. Charming surgeon, respected foundation, nobody asks hard questions. I picked up my coat. But state funding requires hard questions. That's what dead-end bureaucrats do. Your father was wrong about you. Yes. He was. I walked toward the exit. He's been wrong about a lot of things. The IRS will explain the details. 6 months later. The indictment came down in January. 14 counts wire fraud. 7 counts self-dealing under IRS Code 4941. 3 counts tax evasion. 1 count conspiracy to commit racketeering with Dr. Chin named as co-conspirator. Trial lasted 6 weeks. The evidence I'd compiled formed the prosecution's foundation. 1,800 pages of bank records, wire transfers, false invoices, shell company registrations. All cross-referenced, notarized, unimpeachable. My father's defense was that he'd intended to repay everything, and that the foundation's accounting practices were unconventional but not criminal. The jury deliberated 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing: 12 years federal prison, 5 years supervised release. Restitution: $4.1 million plus $8.2 million in IRS excise taxes. Total financial penalty: $12.3 million. The Rivera Foundation was dissolved. Remaining assets: about $300,000, distributed to legitimate diabetes research organizations. My mother filed for divorce 2 months into the trial. She kept the house, sold it for well below market value, moved to Arizona. We exchanged brief emails on holidays. Polite. Distant. Neither of us mentions what happened. My brother Marcus called once, furious, saying I'd destroyed his medical career before it started. I listened for 90 seconds, then said, "You could have asked me what I actually did for a living any time in the past 11 years. You chose not to." He hasn't called since. Thomas Kellerman and 17 other defrauded donors filed civil suit. They'll recover maybe 20 cents on the dollar after legal fees and the criminal restitution order. But Kellerman told me it was never about the money, it was about accountability. 6 people from that dinner party contacted me afterward. 3 to apologize for not taking me seriously. 2 to ask about state funding for their own legitimate research projects. 1. Dr. Patricia Morrison, to offer a recommendation when I applied for promotion. I was appointed Director of Statewide Grant Compliance in March. My new office has windows overlooking the Capitol. My salary increased 40%. My first major initiative: implementing automated fraud detection systems for foundation grants. People ask if I regret it. The public confrontation. The family destruction. The permanent estrangement. I don't. For 18 years my father told me I wasn't smart enough. Wasn't disciplined enough. Wasn't good enough. He burned my future because it threatened his ego. He paraded me as his failure to elevate himself. And all that time I was building expertise in the exact systems he was defrauding. Learning the codes, the regulations, the compliance requirements. Becoming the person with final signature authority over his financial future. He thought I was invisible. Inconsequential. Too mediocre to matter. He was wrong. The IRS excise tax, Code 4941, Section C, Subsection 2, carries a 200% penalty for uncorrected self-dealing. That's not interpretation. That's law. Cold, precise, unavoidable. Just like the daughter he said wasted her potential. Turns out the wasted potential was his. Wasted on arrogance, fraud, and the assumption that bureaucrats don't remember everything. By the time he realized I was watching, the evidence was filed. The penalties were calculated. And the handcuffs were waiting.